Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Wrestling Prep Podcast. I know it's been a few weeks. We're here back with Coach Carolyn Wester and athlete and coach Drew Morgan. I think it was before your second camp that we had our last conversation. You've been doing some camps in Virginia. Since then, of course, the Olympics have been going on. You're planning for another camp. So let's talk about the Olympics first. I know I'd seen some pictures of you with Amit Elor, just won the gold medal. I've seen some pictures of the two of you together when she was young. I know she spent some time in your room a long time, as a child. So I'm sure you're excited to watch her recent success. She's been really dominant over the last several years at all levels. So
It's amazing to see her success because her family, her mother, her sister, and her brothers have been paramount in making her successful. I want to say we moved into the first facility in San Jose in 2010, or started open rooms in 2011. And that's when I remember her first coming. And that's some of those pictures where her hair's in braids. And she always came with her sister, Ronnie, and she would wrestle with her sister and wrestle with other people in the room. And her brother, Ori, may have been, I'm not sure I'm being for sure, but it might have been at Ohio State. And at the time, and I remember him coming back and practicing and working with us and doing clinics for us in that, in that facility. And Amit would come over to open rooms and all the practices that we had at Wrestling Prep at that time. And she was around quite a bit, as well as a lot of other rooms in the Bay Area. I think Las Lomas with Charlie Hong and Mr. Welch, John Welch, and Casey Strand for sure. And I want to say maybe Corey Solomon as youth, and of course CYC with Mark Halverson. So
okay,
do you remember her, Drew? You remember her?
Yeah, no, I remember when I first came in the room, she would come in. She must have been 11, 12 around that time, super small, but she always had the super high socks. It was like her trademarks, like kind of up to her knees, pulled up. And then, yeah, she would do all the body leveraging, better than everyone, or at least up to the par of all the high school boys and stuff. So it's one of those, you look at her and you're like, well, if she can do it, I should be able to do it. Little did I know that she was a beast even at 10, 11, 12, whatever the years were.
Yeah, and her parents, her mother and her brother were just so supportive of her. And she would go compete everywhere, and she would compete in the boys divisions too. She was really enthusiastic to do well. And she also, I believe, was doing judo. And for a long time, she had I believe he's been with her a long time because I've seen pictures of him, but he does the strength and conditioning coach out of Walnut Creek. Has been really great to her.
yeah, it's always interesting to hear the stories as Olympians talk. I know she was just talking about her brother. I saw in an interview yesterday about how important he's been with her nutrition and weight cutting and things like that. But yeah, all of these wrestlers have a large number of people behind the scenes that and fighters as well. I'm sure you're
Well, Drew and I were at the Last Chance Olympic Trials qualifier, and unbeknownst to me, the Elors were all there, not Amit, but her brother Ori was competing. I think
okay.
I think he got third. I'm not sure, but her brother was there, and then her sister Ronnie, and then her brother's fiance, who was I'd never met before, and then Mrs. Elor. So I was fortunate to get to catch up. But anytime you're around them, you're reminded of how much they're a family unit, and how they're the core drivers. I believe in her success has been that communal familial bond that she has with her siblings and her mom.
Yeah, that's great. I heard it was both of the gold medalists from earlier this week were talking a lot about their sort of emotional and mental approach to to wrestling and how I think sometimes our sport we talk a lot about just putting your head down and working hard and that's really important, but they had talked about a time in their careers where they had sort of fallen out of love with the sport and then they put themselves in positions over this last quad that allowed them to really enjoy the process, and that when you enjoy the process, then you're happy and willing to put your head down and do the hard work that we all know is necessary to be successful.
Well, a few minutes ago, this is the kinds of things that I witnessed that she had to face, Drew was saying you'd seen a photo of her somewhere, and she was wearing could you tell him?
Yeah, someone just tweeted. I couldn't tell you who. It was one of those kind of quick scrolls. Looked at the story, but someone just tweeted a picture of her, and I think it was USA Nationals or one of those, bigger national tournaments, and she had won, the 12 and under, 11 under, whatever the age group was, and she was up at the podium, the top with her wrestling prep pink sweater. That's what kind of stuck out to me initially, and then I don't know. The comment was just about, oh, like the kid, like, oh, she's been this good for this long. And then someone maybe made a comment about like, oh, the second place kid looks really upset, yada yada. Because he just had like a sad look, what happens when we all lose. And then maybe Willie Saylor, someone else tweeted from that was like, oh, I don't think he's too upset now. He wrestles at this D1 college, very successful, yada yada. But it was just funny, going back to like she's been this good for a long time and competing with the boys. Obviously probably separated around 14 just because that's where you start to see especially her, she's at a bigger weight class, bigger than 150.
I actually remember that tournament. I was there. It was in Iowa, and I was there, and her sister Ronnie was there, and her mom. I think there's some pictures maybe on my Instagram of us all standing together there. And I just finished cornering Aaron Gandara, who won the whatever division age group he was in, cadet, I think, cadet folk style. And I'd gone over to her match, and Ronnie and I were in the corner, and this man comes over and he's like staring at us, and he's eyeing us, and I don't know, and just try to ignore those kinds of people. And so Amit was wrestling the number 1 seed, and she beat him. And that man came flying over and said, you have to be a coach to be in the corner. I'm like, here's my band, and he's like, I don't think so. You have to get out. I'm like, I just was in the chair for Aaron Gandara's match. And I know other people, I think maybe Ryan Franco and maybe Jesse was there first year at St. John Bosco, and I was around with them, and Nolan, maybe Jacob was there, I think Carson. There was a lot of people, and I went right up to the head table and I said, listen, this guy, but that's the kind of things she had to face as an impressionable, say she was 11 years old. I mean, she won, she did a good job, she did what she was taught, she did what her sister asked her to do in the corner, and then she has to see her hero, her sister. This is my interpretation. Amit has never said a word to me about anything like this, but for me to see that, I found it. I think back to what Bryce was saying about Amit's mental capability. It's very high, because that can't be the only time. They've been through that number when she chose to wrestle in the men's division because she needed the competition.
Yeah, it's a whole another set of obstacles other than the sport itself to throw in someone's face there too.
Well, right. And and I'm trying to, I want to make things good for Ronnie. And I want to, at that time I remember, and I wanted, Amit to feel comfortable competing. She didn't say she wasn't uncomfortable, or I'm not trying to put words in anybody's mouth, but it was uncomfortable for me having to deal with somebody. And Drew's been with me when I've been in the corner with him and people have come over. So I just know it has to be uncomfortable from experience, but I'm super happy for her. I've really been enjoying all her social media.
Yeah.
She has really good social media coverage, and yeah, I'm just super enthusiastic for her to have the best, most positive experience possible.
Yeah, it's awesome to see the gratitude of all of the athletes as they win, as they talk about how grateful they are for the people around them. And she seems to be one that probably more than most has been that way. Let's talk about, I know you and Drew were you had your camp just maybe was it just maybe a week and a half ago? You have one probably about the time this comes out. We'll be starting up the third and final camp there in Virginia. So talk about Week two, week three coming up. What have you seen? What are you up to? Tell us how that
Well,
has
I
gone.
thought week two was exceptional for a variety of reasons. We had a huge diversification of athletes. I want to say I'd have to go through and count again, but it's 24 to 26 different states. We had three foreign countries and Puerto Rico were there. But what was so incredible about this camp was the quality of the counselors, the other clinicians that were there. We had Drew, of course, and then we had some D1 wrestlers from Iowa and one D1 wrestler from Iowa, some kids from North Dakota State. We had kids who've been with us a long time. I can't even begin to name them all, but we were actually able to run the camp in 3 different but consecutively run units.
Okay.
So we had separate mat for athletes that were relatively new to wrestling and certainly new to math-based sequential muscle order movement on one mat. And then we had one mat in the middle that had athletes who've been with us a long time, who were very fast at what they were doing. And we're going to be using the sequential muscle order with a much higher level of technique. And then we had that group divided up into 2, those that were very proficient, those that were newly proficient. And then all the way on the far other side, we had a third series of mats that had athletes that were new to wrestling prep but were over the age of 12. So the larger bodies and those types of people. And we had so many athletes who came back that are going off to college to wrestle D1. I mean, it was like a big homecoming in terms of athletes we worked for. And then we were able to effectively teach people how to use their bodies, but also apply it to technique that was the most effective for the better athletes in the room. So we let the D1 guys and a 4-time no gi open division. No, he's a gi. 4-time open division IBJJF world champion, what he wanted to work on. And then we had some other high-level jiu-jitsu clinicians, some black belts out of Louisville, Kentucky there. And it was great because the technique they needed, everybody else is going to need too, but sometimes the derivation was a little more simplistic than the higher end movement and finishes. So for me, it was great. And we had a cohesive group of people helping out. So not everybody who was volunteering their time and effort spent all their time with the brand new people, and not everybody spent all their time with the less new people, but we had a lot of rotation and a lot of help in those camps. And I'm hoping as time goes on, if we're on some more planes, I'll be able to cut some more video from those camps. What'd you think, Drew?
Yeah, what was Drew, you were there, and you've been to lots and lots of of Carolyn's camps. So how did week two go for you? What were some thoughts? What are your takeaways from the last one?
Yeah, it was cool seeing kind of just the whole wide range of, almost little kids that were just beginning in the sport to, 4-time jiu-jitsu world champ. It's quite the spectrum of people. I was only able to make it, I think, for 2 of the days. One toward the beginning of the week, one toward the end of the week. So it's kind of cool seeing their progression, especially in like the questions they asked. I think a lot of the math-based movement was starting to click. The first day, at least for me, just getting off the competition side of things and being more in the sort of perfecting the craft role. I just get frustrated a little easy when it's, especially kids I know that have been to camp for a while or know at least the general basis of the math-based movements, and they're like not getting it, or they're missing kind of the more simple things. It just sort of drives me, it irks me. But it was nice seeing the 5th day I came, I think, for the last session, the longer of the last day, and it was cool seeing them start to pick things up a lot quicker, and then also ask sort of more detailed questions. And especially I think at that day it was a little more of like we were working some specific math-based positions in this one specific area, and it was cool kind of seeing them all workshop their sort of answers or questions, and then getting my answer just from the competition side, or getting obviously Carolyn's answer to the solution in that situation. And it was kind of cool where they would just be like, well, what if this happens? What if this, they start to see the wheels turning. And that's something I like to see, because then it's like, oh, you're actually thinking about the movement itself,
Right.
along with, how that movement directly correlates to in match positions. There's, those common positions you find in wrestling. I'd say, there's definitely common positions you're going to get in specific shots or positions, whether it's, head outside, head inside, or, it's cool having them ask those questions, especially if they were like, well, what if his head's inside? And I go, oh, well, this is the subtle difference I do, and yada, yada.
It was very effective in that regard. And when we line drill, so I think I'm safe in saying we got about 20,000 shots off. I did the actual math. One day was like 14 something, and another was 9,000 something shots
Okay.
off as they're drilling. But then they start to see it and feel it because they're drilling it and they're drilling it over and over. But they're also doing maybe 44 to 54 shots themselves in a row, and they get exhausted. First they're nervous and they think people are watching them, and then they're exhausted, and then they realize nobody's paying attention, then they realize they can do it when they're tired and everybody's clapping for them. And when you ask them afterwards, how did that make you feel? That is, that is the lesson we're hoping for. We're teaching something that's not mainstream. We're applying it to technique that's effective against the best math-based body position we believe someone can have. And then we're drilling it against lots of people, exhausting them. And they're coming out of that experience going, wow, I'm so more confident. I did better than I thought I could do. And then trying to explain to them if they can remember that feeling when they are feeling those other emotions that are often can trip over to fear and paralysis, in a wrestling match. If they can remember that they got through it before, they'll get through it again, and that they're going to be impressed with themselves. I think that's super gratifying. I love that part.
Yeah. I was thinking as Drew, you were talking about asking questions too. I talk about that in the classroom a lot. That the better the better questions that you ask show that you more understand something more deeply, because you're asking more intelligent questions, and it's probably fun to sit back on the mat with sort of a higher level question, but then you ultimately end up working your way back to these math-based positions, and so you talk about a very specific position and an action that might involve that position. But I'm sure as you both explain, what might be effective in that situation, you probably work your way back to one of these math-based positions. And then once you get to that position, then there's a branching out of things that are possible from there, depending on whether you're wrestling or in jujitsu, and so that's what makes this stuff so applicable to all of these different disciplines.
And at this camp, at Camp 2, we did have a very proficient, and I'm not sure of all his accolades, Muay Thai fighter who's also a jiu-jitsu
Okay.
with us too. So from Brazil, and it was just interesting to see them all starting to connect it and work it together and understand, what's going on, and being excited for their success. I thought it was a really good experience. I'm looking forward to week 3. Of course, in Virginia and certainly in California, school is already started or starting. So I'm sure it looks like we're having a good turnout, but week 3 is usually the one where the most details come out.
Okay.
So a lot
little
of
smaller
campers
group, a
have
little
been
more
there,
experienced group.
and they've been there consecutively. So
Okay.
we are
They've
fortunate
over
that,
this summer then.
yes, we are.
Okay.
We're fortunate because we often have people come back who from the other weeks. We certainly had that when we were doing when people were checking in on the first day of week 2. Jennifer Johnson was here doing commuter and I was doing overnight, and she had a list of about 14 people who hadn't even come through one of the sign-up sites. They'd signed up from Camp 1 to Camp 2
Okay.
in the last 24 hours. So
Yeah, asking before 2 starts if there's still room in 3.
yeah, pretty much. Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. And then just the other clinics that are going to be going on. Just so happens that the next 3 out of the next 4 road trips clinics, Drew will, no, not 3 out of the 4. 2 out of the 4 of the next ones coming up, Drew will also be there too. And our first stop, after week 3 and some family vacation on his part and my part,
Yeah.
is we're going to Helsinki, Finland, and then another town in Finland to coach there. So
Okay. How did you get
we're-
connected with that group? Did they I'm sure they saw some of your stuff and invited you over, but how?
saw some of my stuff, and it was sort of Drew's doing.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
for one,
okay.
I'm the connection. Yeah. They were actually my college teammates. There's 2 brothers, Ville
Oh
and
right, okay.
Giacomo
This is at Campbell. Then I
at
remember.
Campbell.
Yeah,
Yes. So when
one
I
of them was a heavyweight. Am I
transferred,
remembering that right?
yes, that was
Okay,
Jer. He was we graduated the same year. He was my roommate for 3 years.
okay,
When I transferred into Campbell in the 2016 to 2017, that was Ville's senior year, the older
okay.
brother. So he was my team. He was the weight class above me at the time. Probably should have been up at 97. That's a story for another day, but very talented wrestler in his own right, especially
Yeah.
freestyle. I think one year he was, I think, 1 spot away for qualifying for the 2021 Olympics at the
Right.
last chance qualifier. Crazy time with COVID and stuff. So he had to wrestle into another year, which he was just getting older at that point. But I think he was, matches away from world medals and stuff, very talented. And then obviously Jared, heavyweight, he was a round of 12 for NCAA wrestling at heavyweight. And then wrestled also, I think he had should have or wrestled for a medal at junior worlds and wrestled senior worlds a few times. So, very established in their own right in freestyle, especially out of
Yeah.
Finland, which is more of a Greco country, which kind of ties into why they started connecting with Carolyn. So they obviously, especially Jer, knew Carolyn, knew who she was. She'd been around, coaching me coming down before, big tournaments, NCAAs. She'd been at some of our bigger tournaments, Reno, Scuffle, a few others she'd been at. So he knew her and knew that she was high level coach and coaching the UFC and stuff, but I don't think he really knew about the math based stuff. He hadn't been in the room when it had been with me and Carolyn. And then obviously, I mean, as you know, Bryce, her Instagram's kind of been blowing up over the past, I'd say probably 12 months. It's always been, I would say, big, especially for the wrestling community. But I think the jiu-jitsu community, the MMA community has really started to grab hold of the Instagram and just of more of the concept of math-based movement.
Right.
So it's kind of blown up from there. And I think just he saw it, or Ville saw it. And funny enough, Jared was actually coming stateside to train down at Campbell with their heavyweight who All-American this year, and just be a practice partner. And I brought him up to Annapolis for 2 days to come hang out and see him. And he was like, "Yeah, actually, Ville saw Carolyn's Instagram and would love to like talk to her, see what was going on." And we were actually on the phone with Carolyn. She happened to call while I was with Jer. And Carolyn, she was just like, "Do it. Like, let's connect." Connect me. Connect me. Yeah, and within I think 3 or 4 days, like by the time Jer was back in Finland, I think Ville had reached out over Facebook or something.
Yeah.
Got the ball rolling, and I don't know. Within a week, she called me and was just like, "Hey, opportunity to go to Finland in 6 months, 7 months, however far it was."
It was far because I hadn't gone to Estonia yet.
Yeah, and she was like, "If you're in," and of course I was like, "Well, if you're going, I'm definitely in to go." And so she probably bought the tickets within 2 weeks after that, and obviously been working out the details ever since. So
yeah,
and that's just Ville now works for the Finnish Freestyle Federation. Sorry, I missed that part.
Okay.
So Ville post career, I don't know if that's his day job or if he just kind of volunteers with that and helps, but like I said, they don't really have much of a freestyle, not program per se, but at least of like a linear path. At least in the US, we have a lot of the club sector, and then we have folk style and freestyle. We obviously have our like 15U, our juniors and cadets and all that. They don't seem to have as much of a progressive system, and let alone the like club support.
Yeah.
I think Ville's goal is to kind of start from the ground up. Karen can maybe speak more since she's been in contact with him, but starting more with the youth programs and the clubs, and use this as a teaching tool for the coaches and to help kind of just build up their freestyle program.
Yeah, it was pretty clear. So I went to Estonia right in the aftermath of me talking with Ville, and so I got to see the Finnish youth, wrestle. And I think I was with Joshua Schaub, and I think Joshua, I don't know, he went like like 8-1, you know, and we hit a lot of Finnish kids. It wasn't the one, you know, the one that beat him
Yeah.
was not from Finland.
Okay.
So I could see, you know, what the trends were. So what I understand we're doing is the first few days we'll be there. We'll be at the Helsinki. We'll be at the Finnish National Olympic Training Center, staying on the grounds there. And I think Drew and I are coaching 2, maybe 3 times a day. And we're planning on taking 2 other. We have 2 other people that are proficient in body leveraging are going with us. So one's a youth and one's a high schooler. So then we'll have, and then Drew. So we'll have a broad range of people. But what I think is missing is they're not equating muscle order and movement, i.e. potential warm up to technique. So
Right.
we're going to endeavor to teach the body leveraging, but I'm going to make sure we're teaching the body leveraging that's for freestyle and Greco. So
Yeah.
that's the easiest for them to digest. And that's in, you know, what we're going to be doing in some part of it. I think in Helsinki, we might be training with some fighters or some other people as well. And then we're going about 2.5 hours away to a city in which I cannot begin to pronounce, but not even pretend pronounce. That's on a beautiful lake, but is also a training center, a big, massive sports training center for sports teams. And there they're going to be holding the Finnish coaches clinic. Like, I don't want to use the word mandatory, but I got that vibe. Like if you want to be, my impression was if you want to be considered for an international coaching position or leadership on a team, or you wanted to be seen as a reputable source for upcoming athletes to go train with, this is their coaches clinic. And I think they all, you know, try to share or give a little bit of information. And my impression is not that we're the key people, but maybe the newest, and so the ones they're saying you probably should go to. That's the vibe I'm getting from
That
Vila
sounds
in our
exciting.
translated conversations. Yeah, it's really exciting. Who doesn't want to go
I
someplace?
think it
someplace
sounds even
new?
more exciting that they have maybe less of an established, as Drew was saying, less of an established freestyle system there, where a lot of times I imagine with experienced coaches and entrenched systems, you probably have to spend a lot of time dealing with skepticism rather than teaching. And so you probably will encounter a lot of people who are willing to sort of listen and experience and then ask questions rather than putting up walls at the beginning and thinking they already know everything.
Well, I think also too, just from a startup business perspective, you know, if you're you're a coach and you want to be an up and coming coach and you want to work with people, and a lot of coaches want, especially those who've competed, want to work with athletes, but they don't want to work with them from the beginning. They want ready-made. They want to go out and say, I'm so and so, and I wrestled at such and such, and they almost like expect a group of people to come running over and saying, I've had 3 years of wrestling and now I'm ready to go to the next level. Take me, I'm yours. And unfortunately, that doesn't always work that way. So if you choose to use something like math-based body leveraging and math-based movement to teach freestyle or folk style or Greco, but to teach from it, those athletes are going to get better quicker. And if you're a coach who really just wants to work with the kids that are, or the athletes that are more advanced, they should be encouraging people that are learning new things and starting people up quickly, because that just gives them a better potential crop of athletes to work with.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like a cool opportunity. Drew gets a chance to catch up with some some friends, teach some body leveraging, and get in on the ground level of a national system, and yeah, get all of the coaches on board with some solid body position and movement. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then I think I land from Finland, and then the next day I fly to Champaign, Illinois, to work with a D1 coach's children. well, they're not young children, but
Mhm.
work with his personal athletes,
Okay.
some other athletes in Illinois for a few days. And then Yesenia, who's, I don't know if you've ever seen the Wrestling Wives podcast or her
Hmm.
or their Instagram, highly
Right.
informative, incredible amount of information, digestible for anybody who's starting in wrestling as a parent or an observer who wants to understand what's actually occurring. She'll be over there documenting, and then we'll be down at Daisy Fresh with Michael Pixley and Alejandro I'll be down there to do a clinic in Mount Vernon, Illinois. So that'll pull, we have athletes coming, from Missouri, because that's near St. Louis. So Jacob Saunders and that crew, and then some kids from Texas and some other places are coming as well. So we'll be
Okay.
there. And then I come back, and I think the next weekend I'm in Eugene, Oregon. And
Okay.
that's where I'll hit up Drew again. We'll be,
Well, he'll be
Drew
on
will
the
be
West Coast at that point,
He'll
right?
be on the West Coast. Yes. And, we're hoping, I reached out to Aaron Gandara, who's at Southern Oregon,
Mhm.
got one more year of eligibility. And then he's been offered some coaching positions around the area in
Yeah.
an associate with his school. And I'm hoping Aaron comes on up, and
Okay.
that'll be then we're in the middle of October, and then we'll be off to probably some subset of duels, and then journeyman at the end of October, getting ready
Okay.
at the end of September, excuse me. It's all in September. At the end of September, journeyman, which folk style, and then we'll be getting ready for Super 32, and then back on the road for more clinics after. And I
All
believe
right.
I'm going to be going to Salt Lake City, Utah,
Okay.
in October also.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, all these things are at least most of them I know are on the website. Busy end of the summer, busy fall. But that's sounds great that you'll get a chance to impact all those athletes all over the place.
And I think the other piece that I'm excited about, as you know, because you've gotten to post them, and Drew, because he participated in them, a public relations person reached out to me in about a week or so ago and wanted to know if it was okay if they pitched my story to people.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of TV and news interviews. And one of the questions they always ask is, what do you like better? Do you like the pro fighters? Do you like the college
Right.
athletes? Do you want the kids or the high school? But at the end of the day, if you want to be a coach, you have to feed that entire cycle.
Right.
There has to be a feeding of the cycle. You can't be just one area, but if you want people to come up and keep working what you've been working with them, there has to be a cycle. So here in Northern Virginia, it's been a little bit of a slow go. You two both remember when the Wrestling Prep, that was a nonprofit in California, the massive numbers of people
Right.
that would show up. I
And
mean,
hundreds of people showing up on her open mats
200,
on Sundays, and yeah.
yeah, open mats and match nights,
Right.
and we have this humongous amount of people. I often think people, when I get criticized, for like a kid will come from a club or from another program, and they'll come every Sunday for 6 or 8 months. And when they do well, we say, oh, congratulations, or they send me their picture. Drew was saying how they always send me their picture and want me to post them. And then people get, sometimes the other people get offended and feel like someone's trying to, what I mean, take credit or something for what somebody else has done. But that system is what fed the whole area of Northern California for wrestling. And then it got further and further, and people would come from all over. And here in Northern Virginia, it's just as harder. It's a different environment toward wrestling, in my opinion. And in the last 18 months, with Marymount University starting a college program, and then them reaching out, Coach Hill and the athletic director, to associate Friends of Wrestling Prep, our nonprofit, with it. So now
Right.
we're really excited because this year we'll have Monday nights and Wednesday nights and Sundays for free, open to the public, with a massive three formats down. And when I'm traveling, we have Ian Morales and Ben Harders in the area who are
Okay.
indisputably, A plus above proficient
Right,
and
right.
body leveraging and excellent coaches too. So Ian will actually be a student. So the Friends of
Oh, that's
Wrestling,
great. I didn't know that. He's going to wrestle at Marymount then.
yeah, he's wrestling in Marymount. And actually,
That's
Cole Faircloth is coming out in October for the Prospect Camp. His father just sent me a text about
that's
that.
awesome.
Yeah, it's great because that's sort of that's a great way to perpetuate exactly what we're talking about, like a pool of people that are available to come over and over, and then they're spreading it in rev recent. People have always been curious, but now I'm not quite sure what the word is. Now they're adamant that they want to learn how to do the math-based movement. I know in a few podcasts ago we were discussing potential certification and coaches
Mhm.
clinics and things of that nature, but I get a lot of daily, I get a lot of messages asking me when when the next set of coursework's coming out and when the
Right.
next set of coaches clinics are coming out, and trying to make that all happen. But having the nonprofit very active
Mhm.
and sponsoring this this event at Marymount, we'll be able to get athletes from all over the area. And I think, as you know, Bryce, I mean, we already had people registering. We're asking that everybody registers on
Right.
the website, not for money, just so we
Yeah.
can communicate if there's a change.
Right.
If we have to cancel practice or something, and
Mhm.
they're using the gym for something else, then we could be able to let everybody know.
Yeah, that'll be exciting to watch these training opportunities take off as over the next several months as you get that rolling. So yeah, it was great to hear how the summer has gone. What some of your future adventures entail.
Oh
As we
yeah,
said before. Oh yeah.
no, I was just gonna say, as far as the summer, I mean, today we're just talking about the end of the middle, halfway through July and into
Right. Right.
August. The first 3 or 4 months were first from May on
Yeah. Yeah.
has been super. But anyway, keep going. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
yeah, just check out the website. We've got a lot of those past clinics are listed there too, but you can see where Carolyn will be, Carolyn and Drew will be coming up. The online course is there if you're interested in learning a little more about body leveraging. If you're in the Northern Virginia area, of course, which Carolyn mentioned those uh, training opportunities there at Marymount. There's information there on the website. Check out, we talked about Carolyn's Instagram, so Wrestling Prep on Instagram if you want to see some video of some of the training this summer and kind of keep up with Carolyn and Drew going forward.
And
But
and the online coaching. So we're starting, if people have interest
oh
in
right,
online coaching, just started
yeah,
a little bit of a list. And I've been like averaging five online practices a day
wow,
since
okay.
we've been out a week too. And so then there'll be a break. Of course, we're in Finland, but after then, before I leave for Finland, I'll be scheduling for the month of September and the month of
These are
October.
athletes out of the area that you get a chance to watch do some of the
Yeah,
body leveraging
there's
online, and you
actually,
give.
yeah, there's actually some athletes in the area. So a lot
Okay,
of people who come and train, they see it as an add-on jump to make what they're doing. So when they actually come back to a live practice, they're able to use their body 50% better than they could when they
yeah,
left the last practice. They practice online.
all right. And Drew, have a good trip across the country. I know you're heading west pretty soon, and then you both will be heading to Finland shortly after that. So we'll have another conversation soon related to
Well,
clinics
maybe
you've
maybe we
conducted
could
and
podcast from
observations.
maybe we could podcast from Finland.
Yeah, that'd be fun. We'll do that. Yeah, thanks for hanging out. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.